Our next method is called completing the square. So this is another method for solving a quadratic equation. Our first step is to get x squared plus bx on one side and c on the other. So this is very different because normally when we're doing factoring we want everything on one side and 0 on the other. This is an exception. We want the constant on one side and then the x squared and the x on the other side. So then I want to find half of b. So whatever the number is that's being multiplied by x, I want to find half of that, and then I want to square this number. And then I want to add this number to both sides. So this is a very different method. This is very different from factoring. The left will factor as a perfect square trinomial, and then we want to apply the square root property and simplify. So I think it makes more sense when we actually do a problem rather than just talking about it. Now the process only works if there is a coefficient of 1 in front of the x squared. So if we had a problem where x squared had a coefficient other than 1, then the first step is to divide every term by this number. Okay, so let's look at number 1. It says solve each equation by completing the square, and if possible, simplify radicals and rationalize denominators. So my first step is that I want the x squared and the x term on one side, and then the constant on the other. So I want to add 32 to both sides. And you'll notice that I'm leaving a space open here because I do want to put a number here. So that number, this is where we're taking this half and then squaring it. So half of the b term, or half of 4, would be 2. So I'm going to write that down because I want to remember it. And then you want to square that. So you want to find half of it, and then you want to square that number. So 2 squared is 4. And it's the 4 that you want to add to both sides. But I do want to remember that 2 because it will come into play later. So now I have x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 36. Now if you factor this trinomial, x squared plus 4x plus 4, it's actually a perfect square trinomial, meaning it's x plus 2 times x plus 2, or it is x plus 2 squared. And you'll notice I'm putting that in green because the 2 is coming from there. In fact, the first number that you find, that half, that will always show up at this stage in the problem. So that's why I write it down, because it will always come back into play. So now that I have this, I can actually use the square root property to solve. So I can take the square root of both sides, and this will be x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus square root of 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. So I have x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus 6. Then I want to subtract 2. And then this is going to be able to be combined. So I'm going to branch it off into 2 equations. So negative 2 plus 6 and negative 2 minus 6. So x is going to be equal to 4, and x is going to be equal to negative 8. And those will be your two answers. So a very different process from factoring, but it is one of our methods.